just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction. Sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning.
I really like that song. I guess that's why it's my opener. Hey, everybody, we're live. Welcome to Shaman Sundays. I am your host, Brandon Cooper. Waiting on a few people to come in, but and that's okay. The internet has been slow and weird lately, and I don't know why, but that's okay. So let's talk a little bit about what we got coming up. And if you can see over, wait, wrong shoulder. That side, where's my camera? Right there. Me and my green screen got in a fight, and apparently my green screen won. So let me fix that real quick. I don't know. My green screen won. So we got a lot of events coming up. I will be at the Potosi, Missouri with Paranormal Task Force Saturday the 23rd. We would be investigating that entire town. It's super fun. I did it last year. I mean, it's just great. There's like 4 or 5 different buildings, historic houses that we go in. So that's fun. I'll be out there with Supernatural Inc., KD Stafford, and Katie Stafford, his wife. Supernatural Inc. will be there. And then we will be doing, we start our Paracons. So we will, hey, Carol. We will be doing the huge Paracon in Kansas City at the KCI Expo Center in July. And then we have Overland Park, Kansas at some point. I can't remember all of this stuff. And there's Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And then I will be at the Hell House Paracon. I think it's 9/9 in Pennsylvania or something. Or maybe I should write this stuff down. So, hey guys, we have a really, really great guest this evening. Horrible auto. Are we talking about my audio? Does my audio stink? No. Brandon, I just seen you a few minutes ago. I know, Colin. I just got done producing your show, buddy. Listen, we have a great guest. I mean, he really doesn't need any introduction, at least in my world. I have watched this man for years. However, the guest this evening is Tim Shaw, psychic medium, I think. Yep. Among many other things. He has a very long bio because he's been doing this for a long time and he's quite the expert. But I'm just going to hit a couple things when I was reading his bio that I picked up. One, he is from New York, and he does Appalachian Hoodoo. We got to figure out how from way up there he learned about some of our stuff down here in the Appalachian Mountains. We're definitely going to talk about that. He's been on shows like Ghost Lab, and I believe that was the first time I ever saw our guest Tim on a show. I remember Ghost Lab that was on Sci-Fi Channel or Discovery Channel. He's been on Ghost Hunters on Sci-Fi. He's been on Spike's Ghost Ops, Destination America, Paranormal Lockdown. I mean, look at right there. There's the overlay. Look at all the channels, and you know why? And you know, I just briefly met the man, but I think he's the real deal, and people actually like that, especially coming over their TV with as much. You know what? I won't get into that. Oh, he also has. I think he still has the podcast, Black Cat Lounge. going. He has also written several books: The Ghost of Buffalo, Mysteries, Murder, and Mayhem in the Nickel City, among many others. And we'll definitely haunted prisons, haunted asylums. I definitely want to talk to him because I have an upcoming trip to Trans-Allegheny. I want to get his view on that. I mean, but there's so much other interesting things. Especially, where was this? I had read this. He had family. Where was it? Uh, the Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly, a spiritual community. I've actually heard about this place, but I don't know much about it. I definitely want to talk about that. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Tim Shaw to the show.
Hey, Brandon, how are you? Thanks for that intro.
Man,
you know what? You make me sound good, dude. You make me sound good. That's.
Hey,
I have to thank you for that.
Man, I thought about just reading it as is, but I'm like, you know what? No, we're gonna hit these highlights because there's some really amazing stuff in there.
Well, I don't know about amazing. You know what? I always tell people, I said, the reason why there's so much of it is I've been around so long, and I've actually had the chance to meet so many cool people and work with them and be accepted by them and work with a couple years and then move on to something else that may have crossed my path. So you never know. And I've been doing this for a long time, since the 70s when I was a kid. That's when I first started into it. So, and I don't even want to. I don't even want to think about being 66 this year. So,
see that 66. I don't know, is what the new 20. I don't know how they do that math, but
no, 66 is the new 66. Tell my body that.
Man, and I tell people it's not the age, it's the mileage. But when you got both, it's it'll get you real quick.
Oh,
so
it knock you right down real quick, believe me.
But let's start. It says that you were let me get this again. Raised Roman Catholic,
right?
I believe so.
Correct.
But then you had your family members at the Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly.
Correct. My father's side. They were most of them were spiritualists, and they can trace the lineage back to 1880, which is what they consider like part of the golden age of the spiritualist movement, because it began in 1849, and then it almost died out before the Civil War. And when the Civil War took place and all the carnage and all the deaths occurred, people wanted that solace. They wanted to make sure that their loved ones who had died out in the fields and were, their bodies may have never been recovered, they wanted to go and make sure that they were okay. So the religion started to build up a lot of momentum after that. And right around the between 1880s and 1920s, it was really at its peak.
So, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I've been reading Manly P. Hall lately,
mm-hmm.
and he touches on some of that in a couple of his books. And I mean, that's just kind of fascinating to Roman Catholic to spiritualism.
Well, it's not that big of a jump. It really isn't. A lot of people will go and think that it really is, but when you start thinking about the two, there's so much duality in it. I mean, you have I remember a former Jesuit theologian during a lecture saying, if you want to learn about true mediumship, research the life of the saints. And when I did that, you start seeing like the ability of bilocation, spontaneous healing during life, spontaneous healing after death, communing with those on the other side. And usually they used to go and make a big deal out of it and say, well, it's a saint or a deity that they're talking to. And we don't know who they talk to, but it's very, very similar. So the big question, or the big schism between the two, is that the spiritualists do not go and consider Jesus Christ a deity. They consider Jesus Christ a great teacher, a master teacher, such as Buddha and so many of the others out there. So,
Right.
but when you start breaking it down, it really isn't that big of a deal. A lot of it, of course, I mean, both sides have been so watered down over the years through,
Right.
religions. And the bottom line is in all of it, you have to look at that commonality between all the religions. And basically, a religion is created by man, and basically spirituality is your covenant between you and your deity or whatever you believe in. So, the nuts and bolts are always dogma. The true thought and free thought is always spirituality. That's the best way I can describe that.
And I agree with you 100%. I was raised Southern Baptist, so if we really want to get into it, yeah. And now I do shamanism, so but I see so many like connections, and I try to tell people well, your preacher's a shaman, he's a teacher, he's a healer, he's a
Exactly.
leader.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah.
A lot of times it's the titles. I worked with an exorcist years ago, and I used to be like, I'm not getting into this. I don't understand. You're calling, this God and angels and demons and the minions and all this stuff. And he said, well, what do you call this down here? And it'd be like, well, that's the lower vibrational areas. Those are energetic personalities that may have been more negative or whatever. And he said, well, what do you think we call demons? That's what we're calling them. He goes, so basically what he taught me was that it's the titles and semantics of the actual, what we would call these, whatever it is out there. But it's pretty much all the same. It's all in the same wavelength. And when you start thinking about it in that way, things start to become a little bit easier to understand.
And it really does, because I mean, the labels were placed by man.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
well, I always ask people, okay, so who named Earth? Why do we call it Earth? Can you tell me who named it? Well, nobody. So,
and every culture had its own name for Earth.
Right. And then
everything exactly. It's all, it's definitely all across the board. And you start looking at, you break it down even to, most of the time you start looking at religion. And I will even say some of the aspects of the spiritualist religion, the aspects of it, not the spirituality, the practice, but the actual dogma is part of a control. It's part, it no longer, it loses it loses the fact that, it's no longer for the congregates. It's now for the congregation. It is it's a propagation of the religion. And that's wrong. And that's where people have to understand that. And, you go back to, the Council of Nicaea, Constantinople, and they're picking and choosing gospels and,
right.
You have to go and you have to break all that down. And you have to look at it with a very, very serious and logistical mind, and a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people, were brought up to, especially like with me, Roman Catholic. I mean, it was the same way. I mean, I was probably one of the last generations to be actually educated by all nuns. So, and that's the way they would teach you, and it was like a my way or the highway thing.
Right. Oh, and a lot of people don't think we can bring up Friday the 13th, and the real reason why Friday the 13th is what it is. And I'm a master Mason myself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, if you look at it, Friday the 13th came about because the Pope got with the king and said, we don't want to pay these guys back.
Yeah, the Templar movement. Exactly.
Yep.
And the King of France needed money, wanted money. So what did they do? They went after the stormtroopers, basically the ones that were out there protecting the pilgrim routes and trying to defend Jerusalem, and they did trumped up charges. It just sounds like it sounds exactly what people would do today. You know, you start seeing a propaganda minister on it.
Yeah, and I mean, what does it say? There's nothing new under the sun, so it comes back
Exactly.
around.
Exactly.
But and wow, I usually just run my show and it turns into like either a train wreck or it's marvelous. And I think so far it's great. I did not expect us to dive into religion at the forefront, but hey, why not? So let's talk about, let's see here. You said I lose stuff. Man, this studio, I have been fighting, as you can see, like others right there. I got in a fight with my green screen and it won. It's a little bit
I gave up with green screens. That's why now the desk at the backdrop you see, this is my office. This is part of my basement office, part of my collection.
yeah, but I really like that radio behind you there.
That's actually a spirit box, believe it or not. That's the radio back there. What happened is I went out and I always wanted something. I wanted a piece of furniture, one that I wasn't going to take with me everywhere. And we've built a couple of them. My friend Joe Piari has, really taken the time. He does some beautiful work. So we got together and I bought this at an antique shop. It's actually a Harley Davidson commemorative.
Nice.
And I went and there's so much, when I took the back off, there's so much room to it. I actually left all of the components. So when I plug it in, it's an AM FM radio, which is great because, I like listening to the radio. But there was so much room in there. I was able to put in all the pedals and the extra speaker and the power sources. And all I did was run a little line out the back to go into a scanner box. and I hooked, and that's got like one of the best sounds that you're going to ever find. So I, sometimes I'd be down here working.
Yep.
And I just throw it on just to fill the air and see if anybody wants to talk to me.
Well, since I have stumbled upon the coolest looking spirit box I've ever seen.
Thank you. No, you know what the coolest one is? Let me just tell you what the coolest one. The producer director Steve Shippey up in Saginaw, Michigan.
Yep.
I've worked with him on a couple projects, and great guy, super guy, one of the most unsung talents you'll ever want to meet. And he's got a haunted Michigan museum on Adams Street. He had, I can't think of the guy's name now, my brain shut off, but the builder of geoboxes built him a unbelievable spirit box out of a big old stand-up radio that's about 4.5 feet tall off the ground. It has a sound on there that you can't believe. So that's the coolest one. When I saw that geobox, I thought, now that's cool. So that gave me more of an inspiration to go and fool around with that little one behind me.
I guess the next thing, I work with Supernatural Inc. and we make spirit boxes and stuff. But so I don't know if you've heard of KD Stafford.
Yeah.
Or not.
Oh yeah. Okay. I know. I've met him a couple times.
Okay.
We've all crossed paths on the road.
Well, he's unfortunately my best friend. So now I need to get him to make me let's go get like an old jukebox now. If we're just going to go cool and turn this a big jukebox into
Why not?
Why not? Right.
It all works good. I'm going to tell you what, and I have another one. As a matter of fact, I have another box out there, or another shell. And it's got a hardcore heavy duty speaker with a magnet in there. And I'm going to hook it up and I'm going to pick myself up a small amp for it. You can just buy those headphone amps. They're $30. I mean, they're really well worth it. And that tunes in. So, I mean, it gives such a great sound to it, especially when you got one of the old speakers with that big magnet in there and you can hear that wah, 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 and that's what I mean, you don't miss much. You really don't miss much. So that's why I love it. I love those.
Well, since we're on the subject, when you go out investigating,
yes,
what are your go-tos as far as ITC side, or do you like the old school dowsing rods, compass?
Both. I do both. I do both.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie. I have two kits, two complete kits. I have one kit that a matter of fact, I just dusted it off and I took it up to the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber, Pennsylvania, which is an incredible place. And that really consists of spirit box. And actually, I use a spirit box with it. I have, I always have two recorders. I have a, I don't like the sound of a REM pod, but they're effective. What I do have is I do have one of the music boxes, which I found actually gets more hits than I will ever get with the, with the REM pod.
Right.
I'm trying to think what else. I used to go and I used to do a lot of photography, but I'm going to be honest with you. I have never really caught anything that I can't explain through photography. So what I like to do is I like to experiment with different forms of audio. So I not only do I have the digital recorders,
Right.
I went into one of my totes of all my old useless equipment, which I
Right.
have so many totes of these things. And I broke out my old cassette recorder and I use that with an extension mic on it. I love it. And that's actually when I first started way back when. That's what I used to do. I used to work with EVPs and do all my used to do all my interviews with, and I love that. And of course, I always have collapsible dowsing rods and a pendulum. I always have that stuff with me. Different. And I'll tell you what, the one thing I do find I gotta tell you, I love it is I love Pro Measure. Gary Galka's Mel meter. I've got the REM pod version of it. I love that one. It works unbelievably. And I've got EDIs and I got a lot of other stuff. But for my smaller kit, the one that I carry, like if I'm not going to stay overnight someplace, if I'm going into a location that's just like for the day, or I always have my dowsing rods and a pendulum, and I always have my recorders. I always have the Pro Measure. I sound like I sound like a commercial for Pro Measure, but
That's okay.
I like Pro Measure. I do. They do have the small. They have the small scan or the small spirit, filter box. It's okay. I don't find that it's as versatile as one of the other ones where we're using guitar pedals or whatever, because you only got so many sequence on there, where you can really hone in and tweak the other ones so much,
Right.
But it's good for when you're getting out there. And I always have I take the EDI with me because I like the geofoam on there. I like to make sure that I get all the different any kind of different vibrations and of course EMF, and I love all of that because both sides will work. Now the latest place we were at the museum or at the hotel, we got some stuff. Don't get me wrong. We got some stuff, and it was a little coaxing, but we got audio footsteps, and we got things. But the dowsing rods worked spectacularly, and I'm sure as you read in the bio, I'm a big Ouija board user and collector.
Yep.
So I've used the Ouija board, and again, we used to use these things as a kid. I mean, I was taught, you got to be taught how to do it right, but and safely. But and what happened is we were getting a lot of great interaction, and then it just started. It started to spin, and I went, I know exactly what's happening, and it spelled out Zozo, which it wasn't Zozo, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop it now, and we're going to seal up this portal before. I don't want to go, and I don't want to, really push things because I'm not used to. If it's a newer place, I don't want to go and push it. If it's a place that I've been to, many times, I don't care. I'm not afraid to poke the devil at all. But when it comes to a newer place that I'm not familiar with and familiar with the vibrations, I think to myself, we're just going to hold off, and that's what we did. And I'm glad we did that because we did have a lot of a lot of personal experiences, and I love personal experiences. That's
I
because
do
I was
too.
brought up
Yeah.
with personal experiences. You know, the hardcore, cold spots, the moving cold spots. You know, the black, like, I don't know even what you call it. It looks like a black rag spinning around the upper part of the room. Shadows. That's the stuff that I live for. I really like that stuff. And one of the guys got touched, so he was a little shocked. But I love. See, like I said, I like to use both because they're both. I was brought up using like the old way, so
Right.
it's a lot easier for me to connect in that way. But I am like so fascinated by everything that comes out, and I just bought one of those little triangle things that have the yes or no lights on it. So
I was using. Yep.
I want to
Yep.
use that. That's I took it with me, but I ran out of time. Listen, it's so funny because everybody, well, almost everybody is over 50 years old with the group that I hang with, and we kid around and we say we are the AARP paranormal group, and
Right.
we get to be like we were on the road at 7 a.m. and it got to be about 1:30, and I looked at everybody and go, guys, I gotta hit the sack. I gotta go to bed. I said, if anything happens, wake me up. And they're like this. Oh no, we're going to bed now too. So everybody by 1:30, we're all in bed. But next time I have a couple upcoming things that we're planning on doing. So that's going to be the thing that I want to work with. That's going to be the tool. I can't wait to play with that because I've seen the buttons. I know guys that have built the yes or no buttons and the different little devices. This one just to me has a lot more going for it. So I'm gonna, I'm very, very hopeful for that.
Yeah, I getting back to that triangle, the green and the red side or whatever.
What is it? The capacitor, flux capacitor, something.
That's what I'm gonna go with. I just did my first Paracon, hosted my first Paracon in March, and one of the people that came out, they had one of those things, and I got to watch it, and I got the opportunity to use it one previous time before that in a museum, and we got, what, I'll have to send you the footage. We got amazing yes or no, like, yeah. So
see, I like because that's the stuff that's the stuff I live for. We were up at Wildwood during COVID, and there were 6 of us, and we rented the place out, and Wildwood's sanitarium in Salamanca, New York, and it's a big old Victorian house, and so we were going in one at a time, and we were broadcasting live, and what was going on,
right,
and and this is where I really, really fell in love with the music box. I had just got it in like 2 days before, and I was just playing with it around the house, and it's like, I was just sort of like not really impressed with it. But I went and I set it up, and that thing was going off almost in real time, answering questions, and I thought, okay, there might be a little bit something more to that. And that's why I'm hooked on that. I love that stuff. The old ways, don't get me wrong, but there was when my father died, my mother had a dream, and in the dream it was like my father writing a letter and explained to her that the first thing that spirits understand and start to work with is electrical current and frequency, and basically electrical current, which makes a lot of sense because you start getting doorbells ringing, you start getting, like back then, we'll say back then because it was the 90s, you still had wall phones, and everybody didn't have a cell phone, and so you had all of these things that were happening, lights that would turn on and turn off. So I believe that they can manipulate that, and we do know that spirit drains batteries. Whenever you have any place that's got a lot of physical phenomena, hardcore physical phenomena, when you turn your gear on, it drains, and so to me that means that there's something to do with how they can access and manipulate electricity, and to me it makes a lot of sense. As a spiritualist, we're brought up that thoughts are things, and if thoughts are things, what is it? What is a thought and its frequency? And what is it in your brain that connects everything? Well, it's it's impulses. It's all that it's, we're electrical beings. So to me,
Right.
that makes a lot of sense. And we pass on, we become energetic in our nature, in energetic personality. So I'm kind of a full, I really do believe in that. I think that has so much to do with it.
Yeah, and I agree. I know that it's been Einstein has been disproven that uh, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. I'm sure you and I both know that the new thing is they created and destroyed at the exact same time or whatever.
Right.
But basically, we are a really sophisticated walking battery.
Oh yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly. If you use the trimeter, you're picking
Mhm.
people up. You're picking your own electrical impulses up with a trimeter. So, what does that tell you? And that's why I'm a firm believer in using everything like that, everything
Yep.
that you can possibly use, and break it down to that. And what my whole I kind of attack investigations from that level, and you can use both. You can use the old school and you can use new school, but you're still using the same thought or theory, and you can
Right.
apply it to both. And to me, that seems to be able to what's been pretty successful for me in the long run.
Well, and I've told people talking about spirit boxes, the spirit box is nothing but an electronic Ouija board.
Oh yeah, and
know?
and I get the biggest kick out of people who are like, well, I don't want to use a Ouija board out there, and it's like,
Okay.
why? Well, I can't turn it off. I said, well, what are you doing with your with your audio recorder? It's the same thing. It's the same thing, guys. And I can turn it off. You can take your hand off a planche. Doesn't mean that the portal's gone. Doesn't, because I believe that when we're trying to get that interaction, it becomes a man-made portal.
Right. And we have some. I see my producer has starred a few comments. You want to pull those up, and let's see what we get. A loot box would definitely have enough space for a ton of bells and whistles to be put in it. I think this is back when we were talking about your Harley jukebox. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Well, just stay tuned, Carol. Oh, what is Brandon makes beautiful. Well, thank you. I do make some really nice Ouija board. As a matter of fact, I have one.
I love Ouija boards. Well, that's beautiful.
So it's on leather, and I hand burn all.
I was just going to ask you if that was leather.
Yep.
I've done a lot of leather work in my time, so that's gorgeous. I've got 80 some boards over here, just in the other side of the other side of the laptop here. I collect I love the old ones from the the oldest one, I should say the youngest one, but the oldest one is in 1919, and I have them through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and the 50s. And I've got a lot of them I try to look for the Blue Ghost from the Fold era before they went to, Parker Brothers and Hasbro. Those are the ones I really look for. But and everybody, no matter what, everybody's always sending me stuff, or I'm scouring thrift stores and finding these things. But no, people have to understand that there's a way to do these. There's a way to do stuff that's safe, and there's a way that you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And that's where people have to kind of, you got to walk that razor's edge for it.
Well, and when I was a kid, I had one of the Parker Brothers, like Ouija boards, and me and my girlfriend at the time, we did it, and it kind of backfired. And I went, it turned really dark for me for several months. Like I would wake up and I'd see rotting corpses and stuff. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing. So it can go wrong, but then, and I put them away. I said, I'm never using a Ouija board again. Well, then I got into the field, and then, I learned the proper way. And speaking of learning the proper way, you teach classes on proper Ouija board etiquette, right?
Yeah. And, here's what I demystify a lot of things because, so many teachers put so much fluff on what they're teaching. So many people, so many instructors, they want to ritualize it. And I know a lot of people in the craft and voodoo, people who practice voodoo and that sort of thing, and I have a lot of respect for them. But here's the thing, there's a base to it. And if you turn around and you take all that fluff away from it, now you can present it to a student in a safe manner in which everyone is very, very confident and they're not afraid of it, because fear is the big thing. Because, fear is what, you attract what you are. And, if you go and you bring something in that may be parasitical or whatever, they live off of fear. They live off of all that anger and stuff and anxiety. And that's what you usually get is when you're playing around with these things, you don't know what you're doing and how to properly close them. And it's a riot, because I'll teach the class maybe once or twice a year. And, it's like, wherever I go, it's usually standing room only, because people really want to get in there and they really want to work with these boards and they want to learn how to do it so safely and they want to do it confidently. And, and everybody's had, and the last thing that we want to do is we don't want to create another, well, in 2012, I believe that was the last time they used a Ouija board defense down, I believe, in Texas, where some teenagers were messing around with a board and it said to kill this other kid, and they went and they stabbed them, and luckily the kid survived. But you don't want to, you got to go and you got to teach people. That's my biggest problem. I always expect people to have built-in common sense and know right from wrong. But a lot of times they don't, and you have to go and you kind of implement that a little bit and say, well, just because the board tells you to do something, you have free will. You can do whatever you want. You can just discount whatever it says to you and go on your merry way and not worry about it. So, I like to go and just be able to present this in that manner to people. And at the end of class, usually people are like, I was really afraid of using these boards. And now he goes, a lot of my students will say, I'm not really so much afraid of it anymore. Now it sort of makes a lot of sense. And of course, we're breaking it down to the idio, oh my God, my brain, I was talking about it yesterday at a Paracon, the idiomotor reflex, a response. And, it works the same way with dowsing, where there's not a spirit grabbing your hand and moving the planchette. It's you're doing it yourself. But you're receiving some kind of message or whatever into your body, which acts as an antenna, and it's like subconsciously you're actually moving the board or the planchette. And people are always like, oh, when you break it down into that way, they're like, that makes all the sense in the world, because they're all under the impression that the spirit grabbing the hand and it's moving stuff around and stuff. And, and that's the problem with a lot of, we were talking about the old movies before, the show started. That's the problem with the old movies. The old movies are there for thrill rides, but reality is just so much different.
Exactly. Because you've seen movies where the planchette flies across the room and,
I can't wait for that to happen. Brandon, I can't wait for it. I can't wait for my board to levitate. I can't wait for one of the boards to levitate off the table. I've had like flashlights fly off the table, or I've had like a recorder, get knocked off the table, nobody around there. But I have yet to see, what everybody has been, describing over the years, or throw one out. I have yet to give away one of my boards and then wake up in the morning and have that board back in my collection.
Oh, that doesn't happen? Really?
No, that doesn't happen. I haven't had it happen yet. So I'm still waiting for it. Listen, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but if it does, Brandon, I am going to give you a call and say, hey, dude, you're never going to believe what happened.
Yeah, please do, because then probably one of my leather ones is going to wrap around my face. So, but yeah, it's I love the movies. Like we talked before the show. I'm a huge terrible B-movie fan. Well, what most people call terrible, like Satan's School for Girls, amazing.
Oh God, yeah, that's a classic.
Teeth. I don't know if you've seen the movie Teeth, and if you have, okay, then we don't need to go any further. But I will, I sit and watch those guys, But you're right, it's a thrill ride. It's It's the jump scare. It's the whatever.
It
But
is.
it's
It's the
totally
fun house effect. It's the fun house effect. And
yeah,
people,
but it's
and
not. It's not
the
reality.
problem is that people go, and it's like even the reality TV. And I mean, being somebody that has worked a little bit, has had a little touch of reality TV experience, people don't realize that so much of this is it's manipulated, or it's they make it so they set up the frame in order for it to pop.
Yep.
And that they're using music, and they're using the way it's shot, and they're picking certain frames that they're able to go and make it just like so exciting, and as well as I do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you sat in seance, if it doesn't happen in 20 minutes, nothing's going to happen. If you've gone on investigations,
Yep.
you're lucky to keep your eyes open. I have fallen asleep personally in just about every single haunted location I've ever investigated. So I mean, it's
Oh
like,
yeah. I'm sure there's several pictures of me out there in random chairs and random haunted locations, just looking like,
oh, that's
just
me.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, what the worst thing they ever did to me, Brandon, was I spoke down in Louisville, Kentucky. So we were up at Waverly. Fell asleep in one of the operating rooms. Woke up, they took my flashlights. Good thing.
Well,
all I got to say is good thing that they have lit exit signs,
right?
Because I could not see anything. So they took so now it's like I hide. I always have one hidden on my body someplace where they're not going to be able to get at it.
I mean, that's pretty smart. Let's go ahead and bring up one of those starred comments that you've got there, producer Don Corleone. I had a bad experience with the Ouija board years ago. You have to be careful who you share your energy with.
Oh, exactly. And that's why when I teach, everything is with mediumship. It's all kind of all the same. You have to have strict boundaries. Strict boundaries. You have to make sure that you are in control of everything spiritual that you're doing 100%. And everybody that you're working with has to be on the same page. Because I mean, I've worked with Ouija boards by myself solo. I have no fear of it because I was brought up. I've used the automatic writing planchettes as a kid.
Wow, yeah.
That was brought, one of my old teachers, actually, it was her mother's, and she brought it in from England. So I had used that. And so to me, it's just like the same thing, because you're using, just a solo person just using it. So I don't have any fear or anything like that, but you have to go and you have to be careful, and you have to have clear cut boundaries. And when you have that, you eliminate it.
And also, there's something to be said for your intention.
Oh, intention's paramount. And that's that's a big thing. I mean, there was one of my mentors. There was a infestation in one of a dorm or a frat house or something in Ithaca, New York. And what happened was this person, my mentor went down there, took care of the situation, and then she taught everybody how to use a Ouija board. And I said to her, "Why would you do that? You're just propagating the problem." She goes, "Because if they learn how to do it properly, they will never have a problem again." And I went,
exactly.
"Oh, that makes sense." And that's why I offer the classes, because now yesterday a friend of mine makes boards, these beautiful boards he makes, my buddy Greg. And he was sitting, he had the table next to mine, and a woman came up and didn't give him flack, but was like, "I can't believe you're making these demon boards and all this stuff."
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, I understand that you might be afraid of it, or you might not understand it, but you have to respect the person that works with them, because it's nothing more than a tool. And again, where did people get these notions? Well, if I've researched a lot of it, and one of my new talks that I feature this year is a murder here in Buffalo, New York, excuse me, in the 1930s, and it has a combination of a Ouija board, Native American magic, and murder.
Wow.
And you throw a mistress in there too, So
you got to have that, yeah.
Yeah. So right. I mean, there's a lot to it. when you start looking backwards and you start looking at a lot of the published accounts, you have probably a 50-50 balance where it's like Ouija boards are evil and this is what happened and this is bad. And then you have ones that where they publish they go and they publish a poem that was written, that was transcribed through a Ouija board. And I actually have a college yearbook from Western Pennsylvania that was named Ouija.
Huh.
And they did it
Yeah.
because they named it because they thought it was, divine inspiration, that sort of thing. So people have to understand that, we see so much of the bad stuff. And why do we see so much of the bad stuff? Well, you had The Exorcist, and I think it was, what was it, 72 or 73? You have Witchboard that came out, and then you start having more and more of like little vignettes. But up to that time, I mean, you had it on I Love Lucy. They used the Ouija board.
Right.
Norman Rockwell did the young lovers working with the Ouija board. It was so commonplace, and people don't realize that.
And there was that one Ouija board that was designed for like first date, where you set it between your knees and you could get,
Absolutely. And let's not forget the slumber party, the little girl slumber parties, the pink purse, which I have one here. I love bringing it out because people just freak on it because, it's got a pink Ouija board, it's got the pink planchette, and it's in a pink purse, and they've got like suggested cards. They get, so it's like a game, and you pick the card out, and then you ask the Ouija board, what's the first name of my husband going to be, or whatever.
Right.
And, and that, believe me, that didn't, that they got a lot of, I'm sure they got a lot of flack for that one. But, people don't realize that this, is nothing more than a tool. It's nothing more than, like, especially now, it's nothing more than a recorder. It's nothing more than a, I call them squawk boxes, a scanner box. It's nothing. Right. It's nothing more than that. It's just a tool that's used.
And it's no more than, okay, we could even bring it further up to date. No more than the app on your cell phone, the Necrophonics, or So it's
exactly. And I'll tell you what, I'd be more afraid of using, like, I have Necrophonic and I have Echovox on mine. Yep. And I have the jury is still out because of some things that I'm learning about them, of course. And but I'd be more afraid of using those because of the fact that they are a hardcore connection to you. Something that, these phones nowadays, nobody leaves them anywhere. I mean, people will go. I'm surprised that we're able to go and let go of a phone when we go take a shower.
Right.
And, so it becomes like, the old spiritualists would go and take their spirit trumpet or the seance tools, put it underneath their bed or put it on the nightstand, because it would attune your vibrations, attune with the tool. Well, can you imagine really working hardcore with something? And again, I don't know, there's some GPS questions I have on both of those, apps. Can you imagine, though, if, let's say, you're getting, it's pure and it's working properly and it's doing what it's supposed to, purporting to do? Well, can you imagine that is a fast track into your auric field, your energetic field?
Right.
I don't know. I'm more afraid of the phone than I am of the board.
And a cell phone, people don't realize it is a constant exchange of energies. It's not just one way.
Yes, it is.
So I have decided to do this, guys. If you will put hashtag Black Cat in the comments, hashtag Black Cat, we will do a giveaway at the end of this, and I will buy you one of Mr. Tim Shaw's books. Send it to you, and I will see if we can get him to autograph it.
Absolutely.
So put in hashtag Black Cat for that. We are right at a break. Got about 10 minutes until the break. I'm trying to find something that we could quickly talk about. There's really, there's really nothing. that's quick. But I do know when we come back, I want to talk Appalachian Hoodoo, cryptids, voodoo.
I came. Just briefly. I came to that. I have a great interest in folklore, and a good friend of mine actually is a voodoo practitioner, witch doctor Atu. He trained under Priestess Miriam down at the Rampart Street Voodoo Shrine in New Orleans. Through him, I've met a Santeria priest, and I've met so many different people, and the interest just grew. And that's where I really found that I just love, like I say, I love the old folk ways, because it's all being lost, and people aren't. And again, I'm not saying that everything is good for you, and all of these folk ways and all these folk medicines. But the other thing is I love the fact that, especially the Appalachian region, there's so much Christian knowledge in there, Celtic Christianity, and you start as you start dissecting everything, you start seeing some underlying things mixed in with Native American culture, mixed in with all these other influences, and that is so fascinating to me.
Well, and see, I live in the Blue Ridge region of the Appalachians. Like, I'm part of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. It runs thick, but even Christians talk about the little people and the fae that are around.
Oh yeah.
But don't you dare talk about that on Sundays.
Well, up here, I used to belong to a congregation that actually had a church that was built for spiritualists. And because usually spiritualists would just rent Masonic halls or whatever for their services. Built in 1911. Well, they used to have their services not on Sunday like they do now. They used to have it on Wednesday night. The reason being is this way all the good Christians could go to their church on Sundays and not have to have any kind of conflict of interest. But the best part is there was a bulb on the front porch that was not working for as long as I was there, and they say that the bulb burned out in the 60s. Well, we started looking at it, and I believe they had an electrician come and check it out, and all he did was replace the bulb, and it worked. Right. You know why? Because nobody wanted to be seen going into that church. Even though it was on a dead end street, but nobody wanted to be seen going into the church. And as a matter of fact, there's another thing that they did is the parking lot is kind of in the back behind the place. Yep. People for worship service on Sundays, most places will go and walk around and then go in the front door. Most of the congregants will go down into the basement and then come up. Why is that? Because again, nobody could see the good Christians going into the spiritualist temple and coming upstairs. So, it's amazing when you start again. That's just a phenomenal, bit of urban mythology that that can be lost.
Yeah, it's we kind of have a saying, or at least I do down here, that you'll see the preacher in the liquor store on Saturday, but we don't talk about it on Sunday.
Truth.
So, wait a minute. Is that Margaret? You got to add hashtag to your black cat to be entered. It's like it's a computer thing. Oh, hey, look, me and my producer are on the same page. He just put something about it. Hey guys, we're going to go for probably a 5-minute break. We got some commercials. We got to pay the bills. Tim, would you like to hang out with us a little bit longer, and we'll just keep riding this train wreck until it goes somewhere.
Just so long as we're riding, so long as we're not doing that old song, riding this train high in cocaine, we're in good shape. We're in good shape, buddy.
Yeah,
I'm showing my age on that one.
Well, I am a fan of that song too, but so guys, please stay tuned. We will be back after we pay some bills here with yes. Hey there, Trigger. Too quick, buddy. I was gonna say with our amazing guest, Tim Shaw. So okay, now you can push the button.
do this song. This is
And we're back with my new friend, Tim Shaw. So don't forget, hashtag, I had to catch my breath. I have to run downstairs, smoke a cigarette, then I have to run upstairs. Then I remember why I should probably quit. Whew. All right, everybody, we're back. I think we're back. I'm back. Don't forget, hashtag Black Cat. Oh my God, where'd my hat go? Look at that. You know what? Whatever.
You got good hair going, buddy. You're all set.
Well, thank you. I normally, hey, now you guys get to see my hair. I never come on a podcast without the hat. But you know what? I don't know. There's something to be said about the Mr. Clean look.
You know what? I lost my hair when I was probably a night, but I think it was like probably about 1990. Like I started losing my hair when I was 16. So about 1990, it was starting. I had a ponytail, and
okay.
By 96, my dad passed away in 96, and by the time it was 96, it was a thread because there was nothing in the center, and it was just pulled back and everything. I just looked at it one day. I said, "That's it. It's not worth keeping." So off everything went. I've scraped it with a rock ever since.
There, I just we were talking about gathering data and stuff like that. I put a few EVPs that I caught. I went out for a 9-day investigation of the former Cherokee capital city down here near Kiwi. And so Kiwi is now a lake. They flooded all of the stuff that, was sacred in 68 or 67 and 68. And so now
Sounds like the Kanzua Dam project up here in the Alleghenies.
So I mean, we had the
thing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, we had the capital city there. We had a place called Fort Prince George, where 26 peace chiefs were massacred. That's all underwater. But I went out there because I was asked to do some figuring, and I caught a few EVPs. I got 2 that I want to play for you and see what you think. I'll give you the background of this. We were sitting right as close as we could on dry land to the former capital city. Now, this used to be a river, that they dammed up to make it a lake. So there's the setup for that one, and I will play it for you right now. Let me know what you think. Is there somewhere you want us to go tomorrow? Is there somewhere you want us to go tomorrow? Is there?
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, it just caught me off guard. I mean, somebody tell me to go to the river. Okay. And then, so I lit a sacred hit. This last one I want you to listen to. I lit a sacred fire and kind of invited whoever wanted to come up. And so that's the setup for that one. Let me make sure the volume is up. Okay, here we go. Come join me at the fire. Come join me at the fire. Come. Right.
That was good.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to share that with you and the viewers because that's some of the clearest EVPs I have ever gotten in my entire life.
But, those are the ones that you want. Those are the ones that are just like, what did they just say? And when you can go and you can listen to them a second time, and you can still make out, and other people can make out exactly what they're saying, that's what you want. That's what it's always amazing.
Yep. And I probably sat there several hours before, and just so happened to, I guess, ask the right question. But
right, I always tell people, right person, right place at the right time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can't rush it. You can't force it. It has to be there all on its own. I don't have, unfortunately I didn't record it, but I have a really neat scanner story for you if you want to hear.
Yeah, please.
Well, usually when I'm working out, and I had recently I had a cornea transplant. I went blind in my right eye. So I haven't had any really sight in my right eye for well over a year and a half. And so they had worked on it and nothing helped. So they decided to do the cornea transplant. Right. So I went and I had it done. And I had all these really hardcore restrictions because I'm a guy that likes to walk and run around and lift weights and pick stuff up. And I mean, I was like, just tied right down. I couldn't do hardly anything. I'm 66 and I try not to be a senior. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I get it.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I've got to do chair yoga and just to keep my body limber. And so I'm working out with these 10-pound weights, these 10-pound dumbbells, and I'm working out. So I always go again, if I have nothing else going on, if I'm not, if I'm not listening to like radios or if I'm not listening to a podcast or something going on, I'll put the scanner box on. So I put this scanner box on and it's, and I just let it go. And it's not this one. It's actually a nice. It actually looks like it looks like some dynamite. You know, it looks like a C4 contraption is what it looks like. But so I set it up, and I'm going there and I'm watching. You know, I'm working out, and all of a sudden I hear like, "Hey," and I went, you know, okay. I just said, and it could be anything. Again, it could just be a stray, you know, coincidence. I said,
Right.
yeah, hey, you know, does anybody want to talk to me? What's your name? And two names came through, but I remember the one distinctly. It said Felix. I said, Felix. Okay.
Okay.
So it got my attention. And I said, Felix, do I know you? Almost immediately. I'm talking hardcore real time, seconds.
Yep.
A voice came through that was under the frequency of the speaker. You know, everything was up here. You could hear the chatter going around it. But down here, a single word came through, transplant.
Oh.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I had been thinking about how I'm going to go and I'm going to honor this gentleman who actually, because I mean, they don't tell you who it is, you know, when you get any kind of a transplant, but they don't give, you know, I knew he was 50 years old when he passed. I knew he was in good health. He didn't have cancer, didn't have AIDS. You know, I mean, there's a whole list of things that you can know about it. But I've only had it happen to me once before, where a voice came through and it was lower, and it was like it was on its own frequency. That's the only way I can describe it, because I could hear the chatter going up here, but this thing came through, and the minute I said, "Do I know you?" it was like 1 second, 2 second, transplant. So I got a hold of a buddy of mine that's really into ITC tech. And so I said, listen, what's the chances of that word coming out? Well, he says, first of all, it coming below that frequency and sounding different. He goes, that's kind of that's I can't explain that. You know, we just don't, you know, that's something that text can't explain. But he goes, the word transplant is not a common word. He goes, were you using AM or FM? I said, well, I was running FM. He goes, because AM, you know, you got National Public Radio and you've got some other stuff. There's a chance that it could have picked it up. He says, but FM, you have a lesser of a chance of that type of a word coming through, that, you know, a talk show in FM. The other thing he said was, did it come through as a solid word, or like a lot of times when we listen back to scanners, you'll get the two, you know, like a syllable word, but it'll be two parts.
Yep.
And I said, no. He says, did it have an echo on it? He goes, were you using a reverb on it? I said, yeah, I was using an ocean reverb on it. He goes, but did the word transplant have the reverb? I went and I said, no.
Oh.
Well, we can't explain it. We could say that it's a coincidence, of course, but he goes, spiritually, if you think about it, and again, you know, it's like I was talking about haunted dolls and stuff yesterday. It's in the realm of belief, you know, and you have to say that I really believe that whoever donated the part of the cornea for my eye that, you know, that brought back my vision to like 2040 with these glasses, I believe that he reached out to me. And I had been thinking about how I'm going to honor him, and, you know, because I'm going to have a fire, you know, in my backyard, and I'm going to burn tobacco, and I'm going to burn some things for him in his honor, and you know, and a thank you letter, you know, that that I'm going to burn and let the smoke go up to the heavens, and but it was just amazing because all of a sudden it said transplant. It stopped, you know, there's. Brandon, after all these years, there's very few things that stop me dead. That would stop me right in my tracks. And I have to say that was one of the most peak moments, and that made me glad that I do what I do. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, the mediumship, the Svengali thing, you know, that's all there. It's all well and good. And I'm sure if I really, really focused on reaching out, I could have done it. But to have him on the other side reach out to me and bring it through in that manner was so meaningful and just blew my mind away. So what made you ask if you knew him? You know what? That's one of my stock questions, because a lot of times I was, I'll go and say, are you a relative or are you a friend or whatever? But I have to say that not just being a stock question, but it felt familiar.
Right.
That's the only way. And now my wife actually asked my eye surgeon, the head of the transplant team that did my work. He, asked about, well, is it possible that maybe, is he going to start seeing visions and stuff? Like a lot of people do, like the heart, and when they go and they transplant heart or liver or kidneys and that sort of thing, it's not unheard of. And he said probably not. And he says the reason being is there's no major blood vessels that are going into the eye itself, which is the reason why recovery takes between 3 months to 6 months.
Yep.
To make sure that there's no rejection and everything in the eye. So I firmly believe that whoever it was, and the name Felix somehow feels very, very familiar. And that's the name that I remember so strongly, that it was I believe it was him that reached out to me, and right away I said, I have to thank you for your time. And again, it's now that it's getting to be a little, well, here in the West, we've had 2 days of 80-degree weather, and tomorrow it'll be 42 degrees with rain and
Right.
and sleet tomorrow. So when I get my next good day, I'm going to assemble all of the offerings, and I'm going to be able to go and I'll burn them to the heavens, so that as an honoring or an offering to him. So I mean, it was just like it's like one of those peak experiences that you just can't explain, and you're just thrilled that when it happens.
Oh yeah, and I'm kind of glad that you said that you had a cornea transplant, because I may be facing that myself. I have keratoconus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it looks like you're doing well, and that makes me feel good.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first 24 hours sucks, because you have to lay flat, stare straight up. And so my wife put as a matter of fact, still up there, it's a little black square on the ceiling, and you have to stare straight up, and you can like sit up maybe 10 minutes an hour if you're lucky,
Yeah.
And that's the first 24 hours. And then after that, I will say that I went for my follow-up, because it's an outpatient procedure. And the next day I went in and I was already at 2,500, which is the big letters. Yep. So I was able to see that. And this Wednesday I go in because I had a cataract removed. So I have a new lens in there, but it's got a little bit of scarring on it because of all the other work they did. So I'll have this Wednesday, I'll have that lasered out. And that's just, that's after everything else I've gone through, that's nothing. But it's not I will say it's not a bad procedure. It's an uncomfortable procedure. But in the long run, because of all the way my cells just collapsed, it's an unbelievable. I'm so thankful that we're able to do it. And if Felix is his name, thank you, Felix, because you gave me one of the greatest gifts that anybody could give a person.
Well, I mean, that's just an amazing story, and I will keep you in my thoughts on Wednesday when I'm doing my meditation.
It'll be good. It'll be good. we're all I mean, there won't be any problems. I already know that. I have good. Yeah, and again, right. I've got a good. I'm the chief of the transfer or the transplant department is the person that does my work now. So, and I got him by luck again, but I got him by luck because it was, the doctor the surgeon was actually going to do it. He couldn't do it. So he stepped in.
Well, so, luck or preordained?
I believe sometimes a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And well, let's switch gears. So you said that you were big into folklore and folk myth.
Big.
So where did that start? Was that like a childhood thing?
Always. I've always been into it. Always. I find a fascination in it. And you know what? The biggest problem that I have with modern society is that modern society has a nasty habit of destroying the urban legends and the traditions and the life ways of so many different other cultures that
Right.
that don't agree with what the tradition or the culture in power is doing, and they don't agree with it. And then just because they don't agree with it doesn't mean that it's wrong. So I was always heavily influenced by well, just the old German pathways and life ways, which a lot of my ancestors had. My wife is a Polish Soviet Jew, and so we were, I love all of the traditions that they have. So I was brought up slowly with it, and even married into all these traditions,
Right.
and then being able to go and work with through my association with folklore and history and some preservation work I've done, and and of course I was docent at historic sites, and I'm one of these, I'm a flint napper, so I'm making stone tools, and
Right.
I'm doing all this stuff, getting back to the land, and doing the survival stuff. So I was able to go and meet a guy by the name of Mike Bestine, who was one of the last of the wisdom keepers. He's an Algonquin, and uh, to learn the little bit of knowledge that I gleaned from him was just amazing, and it just started to build, and it builds, and it builds, and I find that it's just incredible. I just interviewed a woman that had a haint,
Yep.
that actually went and witnessed a haint, the hag that was looking in through the window at her,
Yep.
and I mean, these are things that people don't realize that are so important, because if we lose our heritage and we lose our mythology, we lose our personality and who we actually are.
I
And
agree.
that's something that's so important to me. And as a spiritualist, I've seen the change. And as someone who has studied the spiritualist religion, I have seen the changes over the years and what happens to it. And as you can see behind me, I'm a big Civil War buff. So I
Right.
mean, this is part of my Civil War. This is a small tad part of my Civil War collection, and people don't realize that things, when they're gone, and you must preserve them for the next generation. And that's why I have this great reverence for so much of it. And Mike Bestine really taught me so much of the Tuscarora way of doing things, because his teacher was Mad Bear Anderson, who was one of the very influential Native American teachers with the AIM movement, and he was, he the whole Wounded Knee thing, and many of the resurgence of the old ways. And I had met several times Chief Warren Sky before he passed, and he was one of the last of the Seneca speakers who was taught Seneca before he was taught English. So you get a chance. And I don't understand. It's so funny because the journey is like so crazy. You never expect, you never expect what turn you're gonna, where you're gonna
Exactly.
end up, but you're able to go and you're gonna find this stuff, and you're gonna be able to go and be able to record it and do something with it, and that's what I always find is so important. And along with it, when you start looking at the urban legends and you start looking at all these stories of these diverse people, you start breaking it down, you start seeing all the basic spirituality movements, and you start seeing what people are really all about. And that's what's important, because people seem to lose that. We're a society that's fractionated, I believe, on purpose,
Yep.
for and it's like it's the old adage that if you keep the masses broken and uneducated, that another, the ruling class can do whatever they want, unfortunately. And that's all, I believe that's all part of why why we're not encouraged to go and really hold on to our historic and our own
Right.
mythology.
Well, and one of the big things that I think, and nobody thinks about this, but how bad shoes are.
Oh yeah.
You know that hey, they broke our connection with the ground.
Right. Now, do you know who Tom Brown Jr. is?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Tom Brown Jr. is he's a backwoods tracker, hardcore guy. He's one of those guys that can track ants across concrete,
Right.
and he's also an American mystic. He is, and and a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy, of course, that surrounds him, but the claim is that he had a adopted Apache, I believe, Apache grandfather, that he went and taught him so many of the different ways. And when I was studying Native American, several Native American traditions, I came upon one of his books, and I was fascinated by it because he talks about the further you get away from nature, the more disjointed you become, the more disorientated you become. And his big thing is shoes. Shoes take you away from the land. And I was lucky that I didn't even want to. I don't listen. You know what, Brandon? I don't even want to tell you how many years ago I met him. But I will say that I have an audio transcript of all his lectures, and they're on cassette, so that'll give you an idea how many years ago it was. But I went up to the Omega the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and I took classes from him. I took extended classes with him, and it was the most mind-blowing thing that you ever wanted to do, because it changes your whole thought. And it's a lot of American shamanism, and it's a lot of practice, and and how to project yourself forward, and how to think differently, and how people react to you when you change the way you think, and how you can train yourself into doing different things, and how you have to go and you honor ancestors and that sort of stuff. It's a mind-blowing experience. But shoes were a big thing, because his when he wears shoes, there's no heel on them. They're flat. There's no arch. They're flat across. They're like a thick moccasin. And I mean, and it's crazy, because you look at his shoes and the tops all look like modern shoes, but the soles are flat across. And he says that's because this way I carry myself in a sacred way. I carry myself in an ancestral way. And when I'm out and I'm in the woods, I'm able to go and be able to feel the ground underneath me, and then Mother Earth talks to me. And I thought that was amazing.
Well, I stumbled on I think it was Sarah Lemos that posted this. There's a movie on YouTube called The Grounding Movie, and he's in there.
Yeah.
So I started watching it, and I mean, I already try to tell people, you need to get out, put your damn cell phone down, blah blah blah, take your shoes off. But that's, so far it's a very interesting movie, and that's But I mean, people don't realize it. The shoes.
Well, if you do ceremony, you do dance, you do traditional dance.
Yeah,
you got to either wear moccasins or go, or go barefoot, because I mean that's all part of it. I mean that's all you have to be able to go. And I used to make, like I said, we said earlier, I used to do a lot of leather work. I used to do a lot of reproduction work, but I used to make moccasins for my friends.
Yep.
And they were like, "This is amazing," because we're born with arches. We're born wearing arches. We're born with heels. Wearing these heels. And when you stop and and it takes and yourself, it takes a little while for your body to readjust. Your whole point of balance is off. But all of a sudden now you understand how you can walk without being heard, and how it's so important to be able to go and have that natural balance, where now so many I believe that so many people that have balance problems, if they just walked in feet and they did that longer, their balance would be a little bit easier. You can exercise your feet, of course, but I mean they would be able to go and be able to navigate so much better.
I mean, I was lucky. I was born with flat feet. So
my feet and my knees are the worst. And it's funny because now I never wore, or I always wore, for 34 years I wore work boots, because I work concrete and asphalt. And I never, ever was caught without a pair of shoes on. And I retired 7 years ago. And now
Yep.
around the house, I almost never wear shoes. I'm always just in stocking feet, or if I go outside to get something, or I do that. I just go out there in order to, and it's so much better for you. And then it's a connection. That grounding connection is so important because we've lost touch with the energies around us. And in order to go I believe that in order to conduct that energy through us, we have to be able to properly ground out.
I agree.
And I can,
agree.
and then, I can talk you through it and just say, well, we're grounding it out, and you do your visualization. But to be able to go and walk around, in that area that way, that's a natural way of grounding. And I believe that that's something that you can go and you can bring those positive energies, those natural, the natural elements to you.
Yep. I mean, I do it whenever, like, if I go outside to smoke a cigarette or whatever, I'm standing in the grass. But so that leads us to voodoo. I don't know how that connected, but hey, we're gonna go with it. So
listen, there's always a good segue in there somewhere.
I'm just trying to find it, but we're just gonna go with it. So voodoo, and specifically Appalachian hoodoo.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world did you get down my way and do?
Well, it's a riot because of the fact that so many times, again, it's just like accidents. I went to a what the heck was it? How many? Oh my God, probably it's got to be well over a decade ago. Oh, more than that, probably 20 years ago. I went to a Yuletide festival, and they had this drumming group there. It's called the Dragon Ritual Drummers from up in Ridgeway, Canada. And that's right across the border from me. I live literally 40 minutes away from the Canadian border. And guy by the name of Utu was the leader. And I sat there and was like, this is unbelievable music. Unbelievable. And I didn't know at the time it was a voodoo beat. A lot of it was voodoo beat. And you start hearing this stuff, and it was like so infectious. So I wrote to him, and I brought him on the show. That's when I still had the old Black Cat Lounge on the old Parax network years ago. And I brought him on the show, and I played some of his music, and we talked about it. And he invited me, over the border to visit. And so I stopped in and talked to him. And he's got his own, his hut. He calls it a hut. It's a house. His house is a shrine. Every room in this house is voodoo, solid, hardcore voodoo. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And having been exposed to it and the traditions, and they're very, very orientated up there about Harriet Tubman and the first ancestors that came across the Canadian border during the abolitionist movements.
Right.
They're very big into honoring them, and they have a lot of ceremonies about that. And it all just kind of fell into place. And then Appalachian Hoodoo was amazing because when I was with CBS Radio many moons ago, I hate saying that because my past is like 1,000 years ago. When I was with CBS Radio, my fan base actually came from Michigan right through the heart of Appalachia and going into Florida. And I never understood that. And I really started getting such a reverence for it. And there's a guy, a great teacher. Wait a minute, I'm going to say his name wrong, but I have to think of it for a second. Orleans Foxwood, and he is an Appalachian Hoodoo practitioner, and I met him through Utu. Mm-hmm. He's got a couple of books out, so I read his books, and all of a sudden I'm looking at this stuff, and he was like, they describe it as being born with the veil over the eyes, being able to have that have the sight, and fascinating. So from there, what do? you follow the rabbit hole where it's going to take you,
Right.
and it's really taken me so far. The other one was, do you remember? And I can't. Oh gosh, the Foxfire books back.
Yeah.
Back, and I'm dating myself. I read these as a kid, and or a lighter. The Foxfire books were all about Appalachia and the folk ways and the different ways that they how to even, I mean, how to build a cabin, how to prepare food.
Right.
And when you read the series, and I forget, there's quite a few books. When you read the series, it was so, at that time, of course, you gotta look at the time period. It was so enlightening to me that it just made perfect sense. So one thing always leads to another. And I had read those previously, even before I'd met Utu, before I met Orion. And then all of a sudden, everything just kind of came to pass. And that's something that with in this life, I always like to tell people that, you may be going and you might be wondering why all this stuff is happening to you. And what people don't realize is that, life or whatever, universal spirit or God or whatever, is actually preparing you for something in your life where you're going to go and it's all going to make sense. Everything that you've worked with before will come into positive play at a certain time. And just as a quick example, I'm one of those guys years ago that couldn't pick up dog poop without gagging.
Right.
Blood. No, I couldn't do it. I got a job part-time job in the hospital. And guess what I was doing? Cleaning up blood spots, cleaning up all this stuff. So, after about 6 months of working in this, it didn't bother me. My wife's aunt's husband, her uncle, fell down the stairs and unfortunately he passed. But when he passed, he had a 6-foot blood pool around him.
Right.
I was able to go, and after they removed the remains, I was able to go there and clean that and do that and honor him in that way. So that, and again, that's when you start thinking about it, it's an honor. You're doing it. It's a total honor that you're able to do this. So you're always built, you're everything that you learn always will come into play. And I always say that people always complain about like learning nonsense. You learn all this nonsense. Why did I have to go through this? But the experience that you gain is what really makes you effective in the long run. And I know that's a long convoluted answer,
No.
but it all rolls in with Appalachian Hoodoo and the love of the people, the love of the traditions, right down into their own music. When you start seeing it, when you start listening to it, you hear all of that. You hear that beauty, and you hear the Celtic memory or melodies, and you hear how, well, look, all of this that was there before, now all of a sudden has created these beautiful songs, and it's all influences. So whatever, and people just like shake their heads when I say to them, don't, you'll use this someday. Believe me, you'll use it.
Well, and that makes perfect sense to me. Like, I'm 100% disabled combat veteran, went through homelessness, alcoholism, the whole 9 yards, which I'm coming up on 2 years sober.
Congratulations on that.
Man, it was, we're there finally. Yeah.
I'm 5-6 years sober now.
Oh, well, and the longer I'm sober, the more I realize that there's more sober people. Well, yes. you get it.
Yeah, I do.
But I was like, why did I go through all this hell, suicide attempts, the whole 9 yards? Which I'm an open book. My tribe, I call my viewers my tribe. They know. I'm like, why did I go through all this? Well, here we are, and it brought me back into my spiritualism and my pursuit of shamanism. I was trained as a child. And so you're right. Everything, all the BS that you go through is to prepare you for the next big thing.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it.
Love you too, Colin, by the way. Love you too, buddy. So, but a lot of people talk about the Appalachian area, and how the cliche, we're just dumb old rednecks or mountain men, and but if you
Let me
look,
tell you something. I've never met a hillbilly that was not a on the level with stuff. A lot of people
yep,
they propagate that whole caricature of
yep,
it. And when you start meeting people and you start learning from them and you start finding these teachers, you start thinking to yourself, holy crap, these people are so far advanced. And the pride and everything and the whole culture is just an amazing technicolor, because it is just this beautiful mishmash of all of these traditions that are sacred, and they bring them together. And people don't realize that, because again, I mean, taking classes with Tom Brown Jr. and again with me doing the backwoods stuff that I've done, the primitive hiking, and just going in there with a fanny pack with just your basics, and
yep,
and a water filtration kit, basically, and living off the land. You understand how all this knowledge is lost, and
oh yeah,
how all of this knowledge is so important to keep us alive in the case of we have catastrophes. And I'll be honest with you, you look at I live, like I say, I live in Western New York, and we get hellacious snow.
yep,
People can't survive if they lose their power. People can't survive if they if they can't get out to the store for 2 or 3 weeks. People can't survive to do this stuff, where the traditional old ways are very important. And a lot of hoodoo, when you start looking at hoodoo, it's
uh-huh.
just not, everybody thinks it's witchcraft, and it's not just witchcraft. When you look at it, it is sacred medicine. It is sacred survival. It is sacred foods. How does, and it's all wrapped up into, and people go and they create the stories around them, of course, which are always
Right,
great. And a lot of it, if you start looking at like even the legends of the Haints, and you start looking at all these other, like, sort of like, you know they well, why they don't allow something, why you don't, if you hear, what was it, if you hear a woman scream, don't stop. Or
yeah,
if or make sure that your door is locked by by dusk.
by
When you
dusk,
start
yep,
looking at there's so much, you have safety plays, you have morality plays that are involved in that. This is all stuff that is so broke. If you break it down, it is the survival of the species, and that's where
yep,
people are missing it, because people, again, they're looking at this stuff, and like they'll buy a book and they'll say, okay, well, this is a spell, this is that. But you got to look beyond that. You got to look under why you're doing that, and you have to look at the basic origins of everything that you're working with. And to me, the basic origins is what's so fascinating to me,
oh yeah,
because Appalachia is, that's a sacred place because of the fact it was so isolated for so
yep,
long. The mountains kept its secrets, and even though, and they've gotten a raw deal in the long run. Society has given Appalachia such a raw deal with the coal mines and all of this stuff, and then giving them the Hollywood treatment of and it's just so wrong about it. And what I love is when people actually take that chance, and you get people don't realize that there's so much intellectual there's so much intellectual property, and so many of these great thinkers actually came from Appalachia. And that's
yep,
what it
yep,
drives me insane when people are, it's like the dumb Polacks, and up
right,
here in Western New York, all the Polish are stupid. Well, there's a reason that, I hate to say it, but sometimes that the woman that's cleaning the bathroom there may have been a pharmacist in the old country, and can't
right,
get, and doesn't speak English that well, so she's not able to go and take a test, state test. People don't realize that. People have to go and look at it. And it's just, for me, it's always resonated as true. And there's spiritual beliefs. And a lot of it is all, again, it's all, it's all Christian based.
hmm,
But if you start looking at some of it, it's really hybrid. and you start looking at it deeper and deeper and deeper, and it becomes a hybrid, this
Yep.
beautiful hybrid dogma. And and again, well, let's face it. Look at the snake. Look at the snake handlers.
Yep.
I've seen them live, and I'm going to tell you what, I've seen these gentlemen's arms, and they were bit, and they're scarred up, and they have never have ever gotten sick from the venom. And they go out, and they just about every time that they go out and they do this worship service, they'll go get a fresh snake. They'll go out and be looking for, and so they're not preparing these things like making sure the venom is weak or whatever in these snakes. And it's you start looking at that, and you start looking at how they transcend everyday life, and they become a higher being. They become one more, with the universe, and how they can do, and how true belief, this laser point focus, this laser point intent, is bringing them closer to their creator. It is like the biggest high for me to be able to go and be able to witness something like that. So for me, it's like when I get a chance to see this stuff, it's like a total honor. I just stand there and just like soak it in, because I'll never know if I'm ever going to be invited back to something of that nature,
Right.
or if it's if I'm gonna if I'll ever see something like this again. And that to me is like, so many people just don't pay attention, and that goes with everything. Brandon, you invite me over to dinner, and let's say you have a specific little thing that you do before dinner. I think it's fascinating. This
Right.
is stuff that people don't that don't appreciate it.
Well, and a lot of this down here is not locked up knowledge. You just got to come down here and sit down.
Yep.
And just
Absorb it.
Yeah, and like the stank handlers, that's no different than I do sweat lodges.
I do too. Yeah, I do them too.
Well, I'll tell you what. Next time, if you come down this way, I do them in North Carolina. We'll do a sweat lodge together. But I was
trained to take care of the grandfather rocks, grandmother and grandfather rocks. So I've always been the guy on the outside. I've done the inside, of course. Don't get me wrong, but I mean I actually was asked to do that.
I'm a fire keeper as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I get it. Except here's a funny. Okay, you'll find this funny. So last sweat lodge that we did, I forgot to ask the fire for permission to work with it, and I got burned pretty good.
Well, that's something that people don't realize. That's like even with dowsing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have permission to do this? Do I have permission to do this? And people don't realize that it's just part of, it's just respect.
Yeah.
And it's also, I was, my brand of, like, when I do seance work, my brand is always going and introducing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we would like to accomplish. Can we do this tonight? We're all on the same page, blah, blah, we're trying, you're trying to be so respectful to the spirits, because, no matter what you're doing, you're working with energetic personalities or some type of energy.
Right.
And if you're respectful, then you don't have a problem. So that includes asking. That, when you get burned, that's like the kick in the pants when you think to yourself, "Oh crap! Oh shit! I forgot to do this."
Exactly. So I had to like reset. My teacher, his name's Gray Eyes. He's in there like dying laughing. He goes, "What'd you forget?" I'm like, "I know, I forgot. I got it." Yeah. But I figured you might get a little kick out of that one, because and it was the first time that my wife had gone through a sweat lodge, so I'm a little bit nervous, because I wanted to make sure everything went well, blah blah blah. But it'll bite you in the butt. And it brought back a memory talking about the way that we do things down here, and I try to tell my kids, go out the same door you came in, no matter what house you're at.
My wife,
and
wife believes that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I finally had to take him to an old house that had the two front doors. And I said,
the old coffin doors. Yep.
Exactly. I'm like, you go in this door, and if you go out this door, you're coming out feet first. And there's there's more to it. And I also remember when I was a kid that we would put out the cream in a little bowl for the fae. And it's strong around here.
Well, they do up here. We have the little people. It's more of a Seneca tradition, and a lot of times what you do is you take glass marbles, and you leave a glass marble out there for them, and they leave a dime. And I know so many people on the reservation that do that. They'll put that glass marble out there, and they'll be left a dime on their doorstep. So it's
that's funny because down here in the Cherokee tradition, we also have little people, and they came out of the earth and to battle side by side with the Cherokee, and they're still around. Little, like 3 foot tall. Yep. So.
But I love, but again, when you start looking at it, you start seeing all the similarities, and that to me is what's so interesting.
Right. Well. I think we've got a couple of starred comments. You want to bring them up, and let's see what we got going on. Let's see, Colin. But humans have done it for hundreds of years, but people think they are going to die if their phone dies. Oh, boy, with the kids and the phones.
But it's not only that, because a lot of adults, we live in a society that I think has an identity problem. And I know myself, I'm addicted to the phone. I have it with me all the time. But people don't know how to read anymore. People don't sit down and read a book. People don't go and they don't do that. They need that stimulation. And I think a lot of it, the problem is it goes and it. Well, I mean, let's face it. They always tell you about an hour to 2 hours before you go to bed, put the phone down because you're not going to sleep. It's the effect on your eyes and the nerve impulses that will keep you awake.
Right.
And I believe a lot of the problems is that we have an addiction problem to it as a society.
Well, and we both learned this recovering alcoholics: instant gratification. That's what this world runs on.
Big time.
And
oh yeah. I mean, and that's why so many like paranormal people have problems. Because they go into these locations, and I know a lot of them. Now, I go into a location, I am like looking at everything, especially a historic one. I'm looking at everything. I'm fascinated by everything. If I don't get anything, I don't care. It's the whole experience, and people aren't looking for that experience. They want to get from A to Z as quickly as they possibly can, and they don't. They don't take the time to go and connect the dots and really enjoy what you're doing out there. And again, I was just up at that Grand Midway Hotel, and it's like the stuff they have in there. They have all these theme rooms. They got like a vampire room and all the. I slept in the demon room of course, because that's like me. And believe me, the demon room was great because it was directly across from the bathroom. So it was the best room. It was the best room in the house. But it was. But people automatically want that. They want that result. And I remember even as a young kid doing like the stuff the spiritualists, all the spiritualist stuff. You had to build it up. You had to build the energy. You had to build everything had to be in sync. I mean, even one of the last hardcore things I did when I was still in the church, when I was still working with that in that one church, it took us 3 months, 4 months to get any kind of response. And that was meeting, and then seance. I mean, there's two different types of seance, but this would be a closed seance where you have the same people meeting, same time, week after week after week. It took 3 or 4 months before we started getting knocks, or we could start hearing discarnate voices, or we started hearing, started hearing footsteps and that sort of stuff. So it took a long time of concentrated effort and intent. And people don't have that anymore. And a lot of people ask me, well, how come they, if we look back at all the old days, back to 1800s, early 1900s. How come all of a sudden all this stuff, was working then and it's not working now? Well, they didn't have TVs, they didn't have radios, they didn't have the cell phones. They had home circles. They would sit there every week. It was like a tradition, and they would work at it. And that was something that they did. And that's, that's the difference. It's so funny because a lot of times you'll be sitting at a table and nothing is happening. And then you'll have somebody that has experience, that has taken the time to learn. They put their hand on the table and the table will jump or move, or you get the bang underneath the table. And why is that? Because it's not because that person is special in any way. It just means that person actually put the time in. And that means that person, his vibration, his energy is that strong. And it is and it's so used to working in that way. And when you get like 4 or 5 people that are really that have done this, it starts to really get great. If you read up, there's a good book out. It's probably one of the seminal books on thought forms and creating thought forms. It's called, I believe, Conjuring Philip or the Philip Experiments. One of the two, and it's about a table tipping experiment in Toronto, Canada, in I believe 1972, and where they wanted to go and they wanted to create a thought form. And they went back to the old spiritualist ways of doing things and doing the contact and bringing, having the table move, and bounce and stuff. So if anybody's interested, that's the book that I learned so much about thought forms from, and and that type of communication. But it takes time. People don't realize it. People just want to be able to go and be cured. People want to go and they want to turn their TV. They want to get their little clickers out and they want to go and turn their TV on and turn their TV off. And that's a shame.
Right. And do you believe you should back out of a cemetery? Yes.
Well, you know what? My traditions, I don't do that because my mother was an office manager in a cemetery for years. So it's like I never backed out of a cemetery yet. Now, I will say that I backed out of a couple haunted houses. I'm not going to lie about that. But a cemetery, the reason why you do that is this way you don't carry the devil on your back. You don't carry that spirit. And you make sure that nothing is following you out. And if they can't attach to your back, they're not going to attach to your front. So that's a great tradition. But no, I used to go pick up my mother at the cemetery and drive straight out. Never.
Right. No. But I would make a quick point about the instant gratification and stuff. Like if I go to a place that has never been investigated, I go ahead and expect I'm not going to get anything for the first couple of times because those spirits have no idea what this red light is.
Yeah.
Or what I'm doing.
Yeah. They got to get used to you and they got to attune to you and they got to get used to your vibration. They're vibrational beings. They've got to get used to you, man. You can't go in there and but the other on the opposite side, you go into a location that is like rented out almost nightly. It's fished out. It becomes fished out.
Yep.
And you don't get anything that way. So you got to, and you have to learn and you have to know how to go and you have to, perk everything up and kind of and try to push it a little bit and get the energy going. But yeah, that's people don't realize that. People just don't realize that it takes time.
Oh, what's happening to my internet?
I'm still getting you.
Okay. Well, if you can, you know what? I'm gonna jump to another internet real fast. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Let me. There we go. Look, there's more than one way to do this. I'm kind of glad. Like my entire system just shut down. So, whatever.
I might have that effect on your system. I don't know.
I mean, it was such a powerful, fun episode that my computer's like, I'm done. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that drawing. So you got 30 seconds in a minute until we flip this thing and find out who is going to win one of Tim Shaw's books. So 30 seconds. Tim, while we're waiting on this, man, this has been an amazing show.
It's good to talk with you, Brandon. It's a lot of fun. I don't get a chance to talk in the abstract like that.
See, and I try to run my show different. Most people are like, okay, how did you start out? What are you doing? No, I just like to chat. That's usually when the best conversations and the best information come out. It's just when you just try to get to know people. Mm-hmm. So I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I kind of fanboyed a little bit because I followed you for a long time, and you are one of the OGs of paranormal.
No. That just means I smell bad. Don't let anybody tell you that.
Oh, wow. Okay, go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage. Let's find out who's going to win a book. Awesome. Hey, Colin, I'll tell you what, I'll have the book sent to me, and then I will bring it to you when I'm in South Dakota. That
sounds good to me.
That'd be the easiest way. Hey, is there any way that you might could hang out for just a couple of minutes after we get off the show? I have something I want to ask you, but I can't say it live because it's not. Yeah, it'll be.
Problem.
Okay, awesome. Hey, listen, thank you to the tribe for always tuning in. If it weren't for you guys, I mean, Tim and I would just be sitting here just talking, which would be great, but I wouldn't have a show. Let's see. Okay, so that was Carol. Carol always helps me end my show. She always says, remember to smile, and ain't that the truth? A smile goes a long way. And there's a saying that I came up with, and I always end my show with it. Maybe it'll mean something to you too, Tim. But it's not about surviving the storm, but it's how you dance in the rain. And that means a lot to me. So
exactly.
Again, I want to thank you so much. I know you're a super busy man. We didn't even get to all the events that you're going to go on. So what I'll do, guys, is I'll put a post up and a link to all the events to where you can go see Tim Shaw, get to meet him live and in person. He's got a bunch coming up, so we will definitely put that on there. We'll also put a link if you go to skydoorentertainment.org under the author section, we will put a link to Tim's books. So that way you can go directly to him. Do not do Amazon. Amazon's bad by paying people. We want to make sure the money goes where it needs to go. So please go directly through his site. And again, I love each and every one of you, and thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next Sunday.